oh, you have anger issues. And I was like, fuck you, I don't have anger issues. Church is weirdly very queer.
Yeah, there's a lot of singing, hand holding. I mean, we did some like yoga stuff, I recall.
Like one guy, you get your dog. Yeah. Oh, my friend, like, what is this? Because one, where are these dicks gonna go if we don't have bottoms? So it can be really hard for people in our community to kind of pull together their whole self. I can be sweet and want to be fisted, right? Like.
This episode of Primary Care is sponsored by Rugiette Health, more than just an ED treatment.
So I'm Tyler.
Hi, Tyler. I'm Adam Maurer. I'm a straight-friendly therapist here in Austin, Texas. Genderqueer, so I use him and her pronouns interchangeably. And I've been in practice now for a decade.
Incredible. And what kind of led you into that path?
Therapy is where I came out. So when I was a little kid, it's hard to believe, but I was once a vital part of God's plan to defeat Satan.
Been there.
Yeah. So I was like hyper Christian and tried to come out at 16, and they tried to pray my gay away, and spoiler alert, did not take. But I went back in the closet for a little bit, and that was like a moment where I said, I don't know what it is yet,
right,
but I know this ain't it.
Yeah.
And when I went to undergrad, I started going to counseling, and the first time I met someone, they were like, oh, you have anger issues. And I was like, fuck you, I don't have anger issues. Which, you know, you're going to be angry if you can't be yourself.
For sure.
So the next semester I met with someone and it felt safer, and that's where I came out.
Gotcha.
So I talk about sex therapy a lot because that's like my jam.
Yeah.
And it seems silly, right? People are like, why would someone go to sex therapy? And I'm like, oh, this shit saves lives for people.
For
like,
sure.
It literally had me be on this planet. So it's a really beautiful practice.
That's incredible. It's definitely I think, often overlooked, certainly, area of counseling and mental health. And if you don't mind me asking, where did you go to college?
I went to St. Ed's right here in Austin.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so it was dope.
Are you from this area?
I moved here in 2005. So for queer people, if you're listening and you're not queer, you might be like, oh, this makes sense. Sometimes when you're ready to go, you just pick up and move from where you lived, because you're like, I need to figure out who I am outside of all these things.
For sure.
And so Austin was that place for me. Like, I was leaving the God Squad and was like, I don't know what it is just yet, but like, I'm going to figure this out.
Right. And were you from Texas originally?
No, I'm from, this is so exciting, Tyler.
Yeah.
Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia.
That's incredible.
Where people reenact a day in the life of 1776.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. One of my my like head of our residency program, he participated in a lot of those events. I didn't ask too many questions because I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the answer. He's quite conservative and might have been on the losing side of the war.
Yeah. When I used to work at God camps, we had like a 4th of July celebration up in the mountains of Virginia, and these like very Confederate people were like looking for Abraham Lincoln for hate crimes. And I was like, you think it'd be easy to find? He's on the penny.
I mean,
like, you know? He's everywhere.
So what kind of led you into Bible camp?
Church is a really safe place for queer people to hide.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because like, you don't have to be sex or sexual.
We were just talking about that earlier today. Yes, actually.
You just like get to follow these rules and be good.
Yep.
And so for me, it felt safe, but also church is weirdly very queer.
Yeah, there's a lot of singing, hand holding. I mean, we did some like yoga stuff, I recall. I mean, a lot of intimate conversations with other men. Yeah. So certainly quite queer.
I did drag in church twice. Like, we had a live nativity, and one year it was so cold.
I'll be Mary.
Yeah, that's exactly what I played. My mom was so like freezing, and the other ladies were like all over 80 and serving like cookies and stuff inside. And so she was like, "Can you play Mary?" I was
Absolutely,
like,
sis.
Yeah, better than you. Let's go.
So did you come from a pretty Christian or conservative family?
So my mom was like very religious, and my dad was atheist, and they did not like each other. So it created a lot of tension. And over time I was like, oh, being godly feels safer. Yeah. Like I can be good. I know what to do. I know how to perform.
Right.
But I was also the person who at youth group would organize a skinny dipping group after youth group. So
Strategic.
if you're good on the surface,
Yes.
you can then do whatever you want kind of behind the scenes.
Right. And I think too, for church, when I look back at it, you're absolutely right. It's quite a safe space, especially before you sort of enter the depths of puberty, when you're not really feeling your sexuality so much. You know you're different, but you can kind of blend in church really easily. You don't have to have a girlfriend because you can be dating Jesus. And so, yeah, it's certainly a great place to hide and a great place to still make friends. You know, I made great relationships with a lot of the people I had in youth group. And so there's a lot of positives there, but there can be a lot of negatives too.
Yeah, I think specifically for queer people, right, if it's the first time you feel safe, like you can be yourself, and then you take the healthy risk of coming out, and the church's response to that, you're like, mine, like a guy, Chadwick, is going to like put mint oil on me and try to anoint me. not the move if you're listening and go to church.
Yeah.
But like that can be soul crushing to like a young person, to be like, this is me trying to be myself. And I think those experiences have been part of what shaped me to be so much more about community and creating space where people really get to be themselves fully and celebrate it just as they are.
Gotcha. Absolutely. That totally makes sense. And so from church camp to where you are now, I'm sure there's quite a story there.
Well, I moved to Texas and started working at a rehab for teenage boys.
Okay. And this is when you were still sort of in the church, or
I was like in the midst of like coming out, pivoting out.
Gotcha.
So I worked at the rehab for almost 7 years. And in that time, the person who oversaw me was an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist. Yeah. And they were like, Adam, you got it. Like you're going to burn out if you stay doing direct care, because that's a hard job.
Yeah.
And so I started going to grad school, and I was really fortunate. I have a partner of 14 years now. So we've been in it for a minute. Wow. And he was like, yeah, you can go to grad school. And I will help cover some of the cost. And I was like, dang, thank you, sugar daddy. I did not know we had it like that. But then being in school was its own thing, right? So I don't know what your program was like. We had 3 whole hours dedicated to our whole community, and that was it.
Well, we probably had less than that.
Right? So
it's really a shame.
Yeah. And it's one of maybe the things that we don't talk about as much in the queer community is how little professionals get training around working with us.
Yeah.
And my experience has been there's a lot of people who mean well, right? So I think they're LGBTQ friendly, but they aren't necessarily knowledgeable.
For sure.
So I was like that kid in class that was like, what about like more than monogamous couples?
Yeah.
What about like this? What about that? And I know some of those professors absolutely hated me because I was shining a light on their ignorance, right? Like they just didn't have a clue of how to work with people in our community.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's not for me. So I ended up doing extra like continuing education credits around
That's good.
Our people, how do we do this?
Right. When I got into residency, was so desperate just to get a job and to just be able to get through residency. I had made it through medical school and not even sure I would get into residency, then got in and then thought, okay, you have 3 years to just make this happen. And I went to a relatively conservative program. Certainly there was a lot of religion tied into it, which shouldn't have been the case. But I remember being on prep myself and being a primary care resident, learning how to treat other patients. And they would never even bring up prep as an option. Granted, this was years ago. It's not as commonly talked about as it is now, but we were given no guidance or training on it. We never offered it to patients. I think maybe my last senior year, they were finally starting to talk about it. And now they're finally starting to talk about trans issues. It's 2023. I mean, we've been seeing trans patients in that population in Southwest Florida for a long time, but we would just never help them in the way that they needed. And a lot of my program would have benefited just from the access to being able to meet a trans person, you know, because there's still some program leaders there that are really hesitant to encourage educating about that population. Of course, politics plays a big key there. It's a relatively conservative area of Florida. Florida's quite a mess in general.
It's a wild one. I like it. I like that it's like a wild card.
Me too. You just never know. You never know how we're going to go. And that's truly, I mean, to me, I've always loved living there. I feel like I've never felt unsafe or had a poor experience, but I'm a white male who can sometimes present more masculine, you know?
Right.
So it kind of makes it a little bit different for me.
I'm picking up on that, Tyler, because I was like, dang, I know for me, right? If I dress like more femme, like I sometimes do, right? I have these beautiful nails, get the nails.
I love it. I love the nails.
people feel like, because we have this myth that femininity is something to be owned, that they have more access to me. So they feel more comfortable saying things that they wouldn't say if I'm more mask presenting or touching me, right? I have like a pink furry coat, and I can't tell you how many like people are like, oh my God, it's my, and I'm like, girl, I'm not a dog.
Right?
You can't just like move in and touch me. So it could be challenging to take up space.
For sure.
And to have our people be seen as like fuel to make money in political campaigns.
Absolutely. And definitely a pawn in many ways, either for the good or for the bad, you know? Yeah. And so we see that a lot now. And of course, we want to be behind the politicians who are using trans rights to move us forward. But sometimes it seems like they're just sort of trying to get our votes or get us sort of excited to participate in what they're pushing and their agenda, because sometimes it's not always exactly in line with.
Yeah. I'm like, queer people, we do not fuck around.
Right.
We're like, you gotta like treat us right.
Yeah, because we've been dealing with such difficult struggles forever, you know, and so we have high expectations at this point, especially if you want to be on our team and wear our colors.
Yeah, I think of it as like the difference between allyship and being an accomplice, right? Like, I don't need another cheerleader being like, go gays. Yeah. Like, no, ma'am, you're just going to be another body between me and a cocktail at fucking Pride, and I'm not here for it. Exactly. I need accomplices, right? I need people on the field with me. Yep. Oh God, I'm going into sports, Tyler, so you might have to help me with this.
That's okay. I may look like I know what sports, but I do not. The closest sports I have to references is drag race. So.
Yes. So I need people down there moving the ball, right?
Yeah.
Because not everyone's going to listen to me.
Right.
Like, they're going to see me a mile away and be like, oh, this person is X, Y, and Z. But I have some friends who blend in really well, and they can have a voice in a way that I could never.
True.
And I'm like, great. Can you do something that's like legit?
Right. And hopefully I do think that people are becoming more aware of queer issues, and they're becoming more mainstream. You know, I definitely think seeing polls that show how many Americans are in favor of gay marriage, which is continuing to increase, trans rights is becoming more understandable. I think it's really interesting how a lot of these drag bans and these trans bans are actually bringing attention to issues that have always been around, and maybe making people realize that they're not so alien or foreign, and that trans people are in your community. They're checking you into the gym, they are bagging your groceries, they're sometimes your doctor, they're sometimes your lawyer, you know, they can be anywhere. And just because you may not know that they're trans doesn't mean that they're not there.
It's always wild to me. I do a whole talk around gender, and I like break this out for people, because usually people are there dressed up because it's like a nice shindig. I'm a bougie bitch. And I'm like, first of all, look at all you lovely like women here.
Right.
Like, y'all are done up. You got the hair, the nails, the jewelry.
Right.
You ain't keeping that shit on when you get home.
Right.
The moment you get home, you're going to be in sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Right.
So you are performing gender even in this moment.
Exactly.
Because it's required for professionalism. So like, we all kind of play with gender in our own ways. It's just some things are more common.
Exactly. I always say too, like, I'm in drag right now. Like, this is literally my drag. I picked out this outfit myself from years of looking at magazines of what I think is attractive or what I like that men wear, and that has formed what my style is over time. And it's an outfit. You know, if you take it off, I can wear anything. I can be in drag in any sort of format, and that's what women do. That's what men do. We just look at it differently. We think that, like you mentioned, we own a type of persona, a femininity or a masculinity or a balance between the two, and we can really just stop limiting ourselves and enjoy all of it.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times in therapy with someone where I know they're finally making progress because they try out clothes they would never have worn before. Right. So they do what's safe. And and not to say it is bad to dress safely, like dress how you got to dress. Dress what's important to you, if that's comfort or things like that. But to see someone like wear pink for the first time, and I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about this today.
For
what
sure.
is it to be seen as, to try something, do something new.
Hey folks, my podcast Primary Care is sponsored by Rougiette Ready, the latest pharmaceutical advancement in erectile dysfunction. This is a sublingual compounded treatment using 3 ingredients, sildenafil, tadalafil, and apomorphine, and it works up to 5 times faster than pills and chewables. We give you a promo code Primary Care for 20% off your first order and free shipping. Now, let's get back to the content.
I bring up Drag Race a lot on this podcast, a lot when I talk about femininity and me experimenting with mine and learning to accept and embrace mine more. It took me 10 years longer to get comfortable with my feminine side than to be gay. It was totally fine for me to be gay in my head because I could still attach to this safe image, this, mask presenting image that would hopefully shield me from trauma as I moved around throughout the world.
I call it a cake topper gay.
Yeah,
right.
for
So
sure.
if you're this very limited definition of gay, like one guy, you get your dog, and that is like palatable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really it was so I could move through life as safe and as easy as possible, but also because I was taught that that was the way it would make it safe and easy. But unfortunately, that there's a whole other side of me that I'm starting to really embrace. And it took Drag Race actually for me to really realize that there's a drag queen in me. There is a feminine side of me that I love. I was just talking with my other guests earlier today. We have me and my partner have heels at the house now. We have wigs.
Yes.
Granted, we don't wear the heels because they destroy my feet.
It's a lot of work.
They do it, but the wigs are fun.
Well, and so often for gay men, specifically men who love men, we are like the first way we learn to be safe is to hate the parts of us that would get us in trouble. So shaming the femme parts, and it continues in community, right? Like I've been to the gay bar and someone's like calling someone a bottom as a put down.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, my friend, like, what is this? Because one, where are these dicks going to go if we don't have bottoms? Two, like, you got to unpack your own stuff, your own relationship of femininity to show up in this space. I don't know how much you might talk about on the podcast, but like there's a big difference between gay spaces and queer spaces.
Tell me. I mean, we've not really talked about that topic, but I would love to dive into
Get into it.
Yes, please.
So I think of it as like gay spaces, you typically know what you're going to see, right? If I go to a gay bar, I can guess who's going to be dancing on the box.
Sure.
And they're going to have proximity to fitness, whiteness, youth, able-bodied, all the things.
Right.
So in those communities, they tend to continue to have a hierarchy of what is more valued. Where queer spaces, it's more like you don't know what you're going to get. Like every person's their own little universe. And so you're just checking in with also the underlying intention of uplifting the most marginalized voices.
Absolutely.
So I've like walked into a queer club, and it was clown night. All sorts of people dressed as erotic clowns dancing. And I was like, who the fuck is this? And there's just so much more expansiveness in that world.
Right.
But it also is about giving up some privilege, which is hard
I don't
for some
like
people.
that.
No.
Yeah, that's, I can say that it's happened to me. And it's so funny. I bring up Drag Race a lot, but it does continue to show me certain things. An example being, there was a female assigned at birth, drag queen on Drag Race, and then there was a lot of people on Twitter like, "Oh, this is supposed to be for men only. This is supposed to be for our community. Trans women are okay and men, but not for born as female or male presenting. We don't need drag kings." And at first I'm like, "Yeah, this is our thing. This is our stuff. Who's invading?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Isn't the whole point of this so everyone's invited?
Right?
Isn't the whole point like?" to make our community bigger and more embracive and more powerful. The more numbers, the more power. So anyone who wants to join and contribute with art or any form of creativity, even if they don't have, I'm not very creative, but if you want to be there and just being present in a space that is queer and promoting equality, we should be like encouraging as many people as possible to get involved. And so that was one of the things that showed me like, where else in my life have I done that? Yeah. Probably many, many places. And so I'm more conscious of those things of nothing is mine, nothing is ours. It's for everybody, Yeah.
I attract a lot of gay men for clients who see my like queer liberation and they're like, I want that, but they don't know what it is or how to like put their name on it. And it's just so fun. Like the journey of that's always so fun. I'm like, do you have any friends that you don't want to fuck? And they're like, and I'm like, okay, that's where we're going to start.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah. Why you're not having intimacy with community that is beyond the erotic. Not that it's bad to fuck your friends or things like that. I'm here for that.
Sure.
And if everyone that you are close to is someone that you want to sleep with, you're missing out.
Right. This is pretty common, I think, at least in my experience with making friends in the gay community. I will say I haven't been like the most successful at building relationships with people because oftentimes it becomes very similar to that, right? You make a friend with someone and typically your friend is going to have a lot in common with you. You're going to enjoy the same things. You're going to spend time together. And if you're both single, you're going to be like, wow, why aren't we together?
Yeah.
And so then you end up dating a lot of your friends. And then what happens when you date is it's either going to go well or it's going to go poorly, 50-50. And if it goes poorly, you're not friends anymore. And so it makes dating or making friends difficult in the community. Would you say, have you had much experience with that?
Yeah. So thank you for gently acknowledging that I'm a big old slut. This is true. So I see a lot of that, of like, how do we share a space? We have limited space together.
Right.
And then we try something, and if it's not working, then how do we disengage from that?
Yeah.
And people feel real weird about that. I mean, this is why there's a lot of ghosting, which seems silly to me, because it's like, bitch, I'm going to see you at rain.
Right.
And I'm going to confront you because that's the kind of bitch that I am.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll be like, hey, I think your behavior is better than that. I
Yeah.
really treasured the time we had together.
Yeah.
Buy me a cocktail and we'll call it even. But the idea too of the myth of a one, right? So there is this idea that there's a one out there. And now that we have like dating apps, it's so much easier to feel like there's an endless supply of people that you could date or hook up with.
Sure.
So it's easy to be like, damn, if I invest in this person, even with their shortcomings or flaws, am I missing out on another person, place, or thing?
Right.
I think that happens for a lot of people. So they're unsure about connecting, dating.
Right.
Also with that, like we as gay men often are taught to be fragmented. So you have your everyday life, and then you have like yourself outside of that. Like we get good at like hooking up and things like that on the side,
Right.
because that's how we learn to practice it.
Yeah.
If you don't have a safe environment to be your full self.
Yeah.
So it can be really hard for people in our community to kind of pull together their whole self.
Sure.
I can be sweet and want to be fisted, right? Like
Why not?
they're not in competition.
Right.
But there can be this sense that if you own your whole self and are seen, that's going to be like too challenging, too much.
Sure.
Which, you know, again, in our community is a very common narrative that like your queerness, who you are is too much. You can be this type of gay.
Right.
But if you want more than that, then what are we going to do with you?
Earlier for myself in my life, I did put a lot of the different aspects in separate boxes is how I would describe it to myself, or fragmented. So I'd have like the scholastic version of me who was focused on school, and then I'd have the version of me that participated in family events and communicated with my family, and then the one that talked to my straight friends, and then the one who was talking to my gay friends or creating relationships in that space. And I always wanted them completely separate from one another because it's much easier to control. And I think a lot of queer people end up growing up as control freaks because we need to control every aspect of how we behave and what we're thinking and how we present ourselves and who's around us, and are we safe, and are we going to make a choice that leads people to know who we really are, and are we ready for that? And so putting things in boxes where you can say, oh, I'm closing this box and I can just replace it, you know, or I can close this box for later. A lot of times I would shut out my family for weeks if I was dealing with something in work or with school or with my personal life because they were all so separate. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm able to definitely create a bigger box that everybody fits into, and that's been a lot more healthy for me.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you probably see that a lot with clients and patients.
It's what I teach people to do, which
Right.
is like, how do you have community that sees all of you and celebrates you?
For people out there who may have questions about the relationship, do you see patients virtually ever, or is that possible?
Yeah. So I only do virtual because
nice. Me
I'm
too.
old school now. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I can just sit at home and do this. And I call them clients because I know you're a doctor and I love it. And
Yeah.
I'm less into the medical model of
That's great.
therapy because it, especially for marginalized people, it encourages them to pathologize themselves rather
sure.
than be like, if I don't have an environment that like loves me,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to flourish?
For sure. I think that's great. I think client is definitely better. I use that interchangeably because I work in like a more subscription-based direct care model. So, you know, I feel I definitely like that phrase better too. I think it takes away the power that sometimes
Right?
it feels like the other person has over you.
Especially in therapy, it's weird because people
Right.
look at me like I'm going to magically pull out the answer
Right.
for them. And I'm
Right.
like, bro, that's not how this works. You might not want to suck as many dicks as I've sucked to get here. Like, you might be done sooner than be.
Right.
So yes,
Where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at moontower_counseling. That's usually where I just vibe.
Yeah.
Or in the streets.
In the streets of Austin.
Yeah. Which, gosh, I'm laughing too because I was like, I used to be like, or on Grindr, but I'm dating someone that's monogamous with that person. So no more Grindr.
No more Grindr.
Unless you want to fight a twink from the valley.
No fighting allowed.
Yeah. I mean, unless you like that.
Unless you like that.
Yeah.
But this was incredible. I would love to have you
am
back.
incredible.
You are
Thank you.
incredible. I would love to have you as a reoccurring guest if you've ever loved to come back. This has been so much fun, and I feel like we have a good vibe together. So
That'd be great.
it would be awesome.
I love it.
Add us on Instagram at Primary Care Pod. Catch up on past episodes and don't miss out on new ones. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify at Primary Care Pod.